right, everybody. You saw if you're watching this on YouTube, you saw the thumbnail. If you're watching this on Twitter, you see the title. Pittsburgh Steelers are back in the rumor mill as they've been really since the new league year started last week, just going buck wild with moves. And now today, rumors start swirling about a certain receiver potentially making his way to Pittsburgh. Brandon Aiyuk. I know that this is I'm somebody who doesn't care about what guys do on social media, things of that nature. It's not necessarily something that I pay attention to, who's following who and who's doing that. Like, none of that ever really, I don't take any of that into consideration when thinking of, where guys are going to go, what's going to happen. But in this situation with Brandon Aiyuk, today tweeting at Mike Tomlin saying, what exactly did he say? Something about, I heard we're twins, or like we look alike, or something of that nature, with eyeball emojis. And there was already like mumbles about the Steelers potentially looking into trading for Brandon Aiyuk. And then that happens, not only raises the suspicion even more and gets people talking even more. And then somebody pointed out that Aiyuk liked a post that said the 49ers tried calling him and he said no, or he told them no. So there's definitely a lot of rumors, a lot of, trying to dissect things and figure out what they mean. Like, at the end of the day, it's very, very possible that like Brandon Aiyuk just stays with the 49ers. Sure, that's fine. But it's also March 19th. Moves have been being made over the past week and a half. And the team has been making the most moves is, the team that is rumored to be in on Brandon Aiyuk, and that's the Steelers, who have a need at receiver, who need a true X receiver that they no longer have after trading Deontay Johnson to the Carolina Panthers. And also a team that was scheduled to have a visit with Mike Williams on Thursday. And he signed a one-year deal worth up to $15 million with the New York Jets today. So now, Pittsburgh's in a spot where they got to move in terms of, hey, we need a legit X receiver. And if they decide to trade for one, great. And it's very apparent that Brandon Aiyuk could very much be on their radar. And again, it all comes down to what they're willing to give up, what the 49ers want, and if the 49ers are even willing to do it in the first place, which, if you're the 49ers, giving up your best receiver isn't exactly, I'm sure that's not exactly on your to-do list or something that you're, racing to do. But we've seen crazier things happen. We've seen teams do it, in recent memory. The weird thing to me, though, is just how many Steelers fans are just so anti or so against getting Brandon Aiyuk, or not necessarily against getting him, but so afraid of trading a first-round pick for him. And if you're one of these people that's either in my mentions and Nick Farbaugh's mentions and Jarrett Bell's mentions, who are trying to tell us that Brandon Aiyuk isn't good, well, that's fine. I'm not talking to you, clearly, because you don't know what you're talking about. But everybody this time of year puts far too much investment and value into draft picks. That's not to say that a first-round pick doesn't hold any value. It obviously does. But if you're a team like the Steelers in this situation, who clearly needs a number one receiver, and it's no disrespect to George Pickens, by the way, but he's a number two deep threat who will catch every contested ball that you throw at him. But he's not, necessarily a guy that you look at to, create his own natural separation, to win with his route running ability. We know what George Pickens is, to at least to this point of his career. And that is, if he gets the ball in space, then he'll get some yards after the catch, and he's a contested catch guy. But he's not, necessarily the guy that you look at to gain that natural separation, the line of scrimmage, and things of that nature. And so many people are freaking out. Oh my goodness, you can't trade a first-round pick. Oh, really? Because Derek Bell made a wonderful point on Twitter. Do you think the Buffalo Bills regret trading a first-round pick for Stephon Diggs? Do you think that the Philadelphia Eagles regret trading a first-round pick for A.J. Brown? Do you think that the Miami Dolphins regret trading a first-round pick for Tyreek Hill? No, no, and no. And with guys like that, the rewards come with them. And you can't be like, oh, well, I can just draft somebody. They could, but there's zero guarantee that these guys are going to be any good. Ask Quentin Johnson and the Chargers. Ask Treylon Burks and the Titans, who they traded A.J. Brown and immediately drafted Treylon Burks. We're like, oh, he'll just be A.J. Brown. And they quickly found out, oh, no, he's not. My good friend Jason Aponte, how about shutting your whore mouth, pal? Hey, man, it's a good day to be a Steelers fan. And if Omar Khan pulls off another highway robbery and gets Brandon Aiyuk, I'll be very happy. But these people who are just putting so much value into a first-round draft pick, and it's not to say that, whoever they take won't be good, but it's the Family Guy mystery box or a boat thing. Like, oh, a boat's a boat, but the mystery box could be anything. It can even be a boat. I'm not saying that there isn't a chance whoever they take in the first, it probably won't even be the first round. If they take a guy in the second round, third round, what have you, none of them are going to be as good as Brandon Aiyuk is right now. And everybody's like, oh, what about Roman Wilson or Ricky Purcell? Well, first of all, those guys are going to be predominant slot guys. So that's what they were in college, is they're going to be slot guys. Roman Wilson might have the chance to be an outside guy, but I don't think Ricky Purcell is somebody who's going to, transition from being a predominant slot guy to being outside. But everybody's so freaked out about trading a first-round pick. Yeah, you know who else traded first-round picks forever? The Rams, and they got a ring out of it. There's more than one ways to bake a cake in this situation. And by the way, the Steelers over the past half decade have been god-awful at drafting the first round. Like, Terrell Edmonds eventually became good, but they didn't keep him around. He's no longer with the team. Devin Bush, no longer with the team, didn't end up being good. We know how Kenny Pickett turned out. Najee Harris, he's fine, but he's not great. And there's a chance that they don't pick up his fifth-year option. So the Steelers are the walking embodiment of, first-round picks, it's very hit or miss. This is an organized crapshoot. So they can take a Brian Thomas. That's fine. There's no guarantee he's going to be good. They can take a Troy Franklin. That's fine. Ain't no guarantee he's going to be good. If you can get Brandon Aiyuk, you get Brandon Aiyuk. And you worry about the other stuff later. And whatever it may cost you. You also got to take into consideration the market for receivers right now. And I understand, Nick Farbaugh pointed out that A.J. Brown went for a 1 and a 3. However, in the years since, and especially this offseason, we're seeing receivers aren't garnering high-level draft picks in return. Now, granted, Brandon Aiyuk is better than Jerry Jeudy, who went for a pair of day 3 picks. And he's better than Deontay Johnson, who the Steelers traded away for Dante Jackson and a 6th-round pick. And while I think that Aiyuk is talented enough, like the guys before him that went for first-round picks, I wouldn't be surprised if he went for, say a 2nd and a 3rd in a case where the Steelers were to make the trade. A 2nd, a 3rd, and a player. Because he is good. He's very good. I wouldn't be doing this if he was bad. But I do think that there's a world where the Steelers somehow keep the first-round pick, give San Francisco a 2nd. They got 2 third-round picks. Give them one of your 3rds. And like Calvin Austin. get you a nice gadget receiver to go along to make the deal sweeter. And hell, they got 2 7th-round picks. Well, you could have both of those as well next year. Take those 2 7s that we got for Kenny Pickett. So we'll give you 4 draft picks, 2 of which probably won't turn out to be. The 49ers are good with 7th-round picks. They'll tell you about it. Believe me, they will. That's their entire identity right now. Is our quarterback was a 7th-round pick. Take 2 of them then. Hell, you're pretty good at it. Why not take 2 of them? Take the 2nd and the 3rd, Calvin Austin, 2 7s. I think it's a great idea. I'll tell you about it. Believe me, they will. So I do think that there's a world where he doesn't go for a first. Because even then, T. Higgins is another guy on the market. And the highest compensation that he was rumored to go for was pick 33 or 39 from the Panthers. And so if he's not going for a first, I think that him and Brandon Aiyuk I think Brandon Aiyuk's better than T. Higgins, but at the same time, it's not as if there's this ginormous gap. And if T. Higgins isn't going to go for a first, I wouldn't be surprised if Brandon Aiyuk didn't. So there's a world where, if the Steelers are serious about this and everything from their actions over the past week says they should be taken serious in terms of being in on Brandon Aiyuk, and Omar Khan calls up John Lynch, is like, hey, man, we'll give you the 2nd. We'll give you one of our 3rds. We'll give you Calvin Austin, who I think would have a nice role in Kyle Shanahan's offense. For those of you who don't know much about Calvin Austin, Sauce Gardner said that he was the toughest guy he ever covered in college. He had a couple touchdowns last year at the Steelers once they figured out a way to use him. He's a fine, number 3, number 4 slot gadget type guy. Very fast. So I, give you 2nd and 3rd, Calvin Austin. And if you want, we'll give you both those 7th-round picks next year. Or we'll give you one of them. 4 total draft picks. 2 on day 2. A player. You give us Brandon Aiyuk, who, by the way, from his recent activity and actions, doesn't seem like he really wants to be in San Francisco anyway. So if he's not going to be there, you might as well try to get as much value for him as possible. Now, is it possible that they get outbid if Aiyuk was to be traded? Of course. There's going to be, if the report about Jacksonville offering a 1 is true, which, I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know either way if they did offer a 1 in Zay Jones. But if they did, and that wasn't enough, then, what are we talking about? But if the Steelers are able to get Brandon Aiyuk, and even if it does cost them a 1st-round pick, okay. Because you're not going to find anybody who's as good as Brandon Aiyuk is right now. And let's say it does cost what the A.J. Brown deal did. Okay, that's a 1 and a 3. Okay, use that 2nd-round pick to get a center. Maybe sign a nice depth tackle, because if you do that trade, people are going to talk about the holes that are left on the team. Guys, every team's going to have holes. All of them. Doesn't matter how good you are. You're going to have holes. And unfortunately for the Steelers, they ain't good enough. They don't have a Patrick Mahomes where they could win throwing to me. Got to get some help for Russell Wilson and or Justin Fields. Brandon Aiyuk's pretty good help. And if there is a world where, Dan Moore's starting again, obviously it's not ideal. But could you do worse? Sure. But whatever does come of it, if they were to get Brandon Aiyuk, that's a big win. That's a ginormous win. And so many people are so hung up on potentially having to give up a 1st-round pick for him, when the Steelers have shown us over the past half decade or so that, hey, 1st-round picks, a little bit overrated in value because they haven't been good at taking 1st-round picks. Hell, the best use of their 1st-round pick has been when they've traded it in 2019 for Minkah Fitzpatrick. When they gave up their 2019 1st-round pick for Minkah Fitzpatrick, that is the best use of a 1st-round pick that they've had in the past decade. All the other ones have haven't gotten extended or didn't get their fifth-year option picked up or somewhere else. Terrell Edmunds got the fifth. He didn't get his fifth-year option pick up. He got a one-year deal and then eventually went to Philadelphia and then got traded to Tennessee as a free agent again. Najee Harris, we'll see if they pick up his option. Kenny Pickett, lol. Devin Bush, lol. He's now in Cleveland after a one-year stint in Seattle. These aren't guarantees, man. And it's no guarantee that whomever they take is going to be good. It's a good guarantee that Brandon Aiyuk's pretty freaking good. And no receiver that they're going to take is going to be as good as him. And another thing people have been bitching and moaning about is, oh my goodness, you got to pay him. Yeah, no kidding. Everybody wants star players until the star player wants star player money. And then all of a sudden, it's up in arms. Oh my goodness, how could we ever? Of course he's going to want paid. Did you see what Jerry Jeudy just got? If Jerry Judy's getting that, Brandon Aiyuk could probably ask for damn near $30 million a year if he wanted to. Everybody wants star players until the star player wants paid like a star player. And then everybody's like, oh my goodness. Like, yeah, no kidding. He's good. He's going to want paid like he's good. That's just how it is. That's how professional sports work. You can't want, elite talent for fourth string money and expect it to work. Can't do it. And as I've said before, I would much rather see the Steelers take the risk of bringing in really good players and giving them money over, okay, we'll risk it and hope this guy who's not good becomes good. No. I would much rather see the latter or the former on this situation where it's, okay, yeah, if that guy's good, let's go get him. Take the Rams approach, man. The Rams said, to hell with these picks. We're going to get guys who we know are good, and that's how we're going to build our team. And guess what? It got them a ring. They had a down year in between. That's because all their good players got hurt, and then the very next year, they're in the playoffs again. This isn't difficult. And people are going to put so much value on a first-round pick that may or may not be good, and it's pretty certain won't be as good as what Brandon Aiyuk is. And if you want to have the argument of, okay, they should keep the first-round pick and take a center or a tackle, I hear you on that. That's an argument I can listen to because they do need to upgrade at tackle. They should. If the argument is, would you rather have a Marius Mims at right tackle, take a Marius Mims at right tackle and move Broderick Jones to left tackle, or Brandon Aiyuk? I got to tell you, man, I think I'd still take Aiyuk. And maybe that's just me being a little bit naive about, the offensive line play and whatnot. Especially in Arthur Smith's offense. So, I get it. I would get the pushback of having that opinion. I get that. But when you have a guy like Brandon Aiyuk that you can get, it's hard for me to look at that and be like, no, I'm good. And then there is a world where, they can take that first round pick and trade it for Brandon Aiyuk. Take a center in the second round. And then, run it back with Dan Moore and Broderick Jones. I think that's a possibility. It's not one that people want to hear, and I understand why. Because Dan Moore isn't what the Steelers want at left tackle. Let me say this. It's not what Steelers fans want at left tackle. People in the building like him. I'm sure he's a cool, a nice enough guy and whatnot, but the play hasn't been there. So I completely understand why people are eager to upgrade at left tackle because Dan Moore just hasn't been that guy. So I get that. But at the same time, Brandon Aiyuk is very good. And I have to look at the names that are still available via free agency at both center and left tackle. But if you can address, even have a slight upgrade there. And to be frank, Dan Moore's a fine backup tackle, but it wouldn't be too difficult to upgrade over his production at left. And if you want to sign a right tackle and just move Broderick Jones to left, his natural position, do that. We saw the Bengals today just sign Trent Brown. A move of that nature would be fine for the Steelers. But as I've said, people put way too much value in first-round draft picks, man. Especially for a team that hasn't been good at hitting on them over the past couple years. More than the last almost decade. And the best use of a first-round pick that they did have was when they traded it to Miami to get Minkah Fitzpatrick. Now, last year they took Broderick Jones, and that seemed to be paying off. Especially when they finally put him in the starting lineup. He played well. A little bit raw in terms of pass protection and whatnot, but overall, better than the alternative. I wish that they would have just moved him to left and kept Chuks Okorafor at right tackle, because I think he's a fine right tackle. But he's now in New England. And also, that was another situation where they were just trying to, cut all the fat off the steak. Chuks didn't really want to be there, so they weren't going to bring him back. Fine. But man alive, the emphasis on, oh my goodness, they can't trade a first-round pick. Yeah, they can. It'll be fine. It'll be completely fine. Because this is a team that hasn't been great on hitting on him. Granted, it's a new general manager, so I get that. Paranormal in the Funhouse. Steelers stand here. New sub. Oh, I appreciate that. I think we're going to go get him. I hope so. I would love to see it. And the best thing about it is that it's a possibility. In previous years, this wouldn't even be a conversation. And we know the reasons why. Because Kevin Colbert was a lame duck GM who didn't have advanced thinking when it came to free agency, only worried about the draft, wasn't good at the draft. Kevin Colbert was a bad general manager that got all of his issues masked by having a good quarterback and a good head coach. He had occasional hits, don't get me wrong. Like, he drafted TJ Watt. Yeah, that's pretty smart of you. But his last 4 drafts, man, they were all bad. And all that was masked because Ben Roethlisberger was there, Mike Tomlin was there, an elite quarterback and a good head coach, or, a top 5 head coach. They can mask a lot of things. And I think over the past few weeks, we're seeing, oh, okay, maybe Mike Tomlin didn't deserve as much of the blame that he's been getting. I think Kevin Colbert deserved a lot more of the blame than, that we were given to Mike Tomlin should be transferred to Kevin Colbert. I would trade it for a first round because you'd be getting a first round in return. Brandon would be that first round receiver you're looking. Yeah, that's my point too. Nobody that you're taking, if the Steelers were to take a receiver in the first round, none of them are going to be as good right now as Brandon Aiyuk is. Now, if you wanted to make the argument that they should trade up and try to get Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze, I would listen to that too. I'd be cool with that. And I get it from a cost standpoint because you'd have to pay Aiyuk. But even then, the argument against paying Aiyuk never made any sense to me either, because he's a great receiver. So obviously he's going to want great receiver money. And people try to have it both ways. You can't. You can't be like, well, I like him and I think he's really good. I don't think they should pay him that much. Well, he's that good. He's going to get paid that much by somebody. Hell, the Titans just gave Calvin Ridley a boatload of money and got really aggressive to it and probably overpaid him. But that's the world we live in, man. It's a passing league, and receivers are incredibly important to that. Unless, of course, you're Kansas City and you got 15. But again, that's another thing. You can't look at the Chiefs and be like, well, they won without receivers. Yeah, they also have the greatest quarterback that's ever walked this planet who can mask a lot of issues. And they also, they have Kelsey, they have Rashee Rice, both guys who are, Kelsey, obviously a walk-in Hall of Famer. Rashee Rice really came alive this year. And they had a good run game with Isaiah Pacheco. and a very phenomenal defense. So it's not as if it was just Patrick Mahomes and, a pocket full of sunshine. But if you can get Brandon Aiyuk, you get Brandon Aiyuk. Especially because another thing, like I've talked about it before, the Steelers don't have, one of these elite quarterbacks. They obviously upgraded, with Russ and or Fields, depending on how this thing goes. But the way that they're going about it, man, is okay. We don't have one of these, we don't have a Mahomes, a Josh Allen, a Joe Burrow. What we're gonna do, we're gonna get competent quarterback play and just build a juggernaut. We're gonna, we have Joey Porter Jr., we have T.J. Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Cam Hayward already. We're gonna go get a Patrick Queen. We're gonna get a Deshaun Elliott, one of these, these core guys to take a little bit of the pressure off Minkah Fitzpatrick. No, and they shouldn't be done, and I don't think they are going to be done. Even if it's not Aiyuk, they're absolutely getting another receiver. Probably more than one, because they're still really thin at the position. And if they're able to acquire, whether it be Aiyuk or, another guy that might maybe a Terry McLaurin, someone of that nature, and also sign someone like a Tyler Boyd or draft somebody to put in the slot, then you got a receiver room of, in this theoretical situation of McLaurin / Aiyuk, George Pickens, a draft pick in the slot, whether it be Roman Wilson or Ricky Purcell or someone of that nature, Calvin Austin, Van Jefferson, and then Miles Boyd going to be there purely for special teams. And if somebody gets hurt, I mean, that's better than the receiver room you had last year, comfortably. When you were trotting out Allen Robinson's ass, no disrespect to Allen Robinson, but that was not good. Had less than 300 yards receiving. Wasn't good, but they also traded nothing to get him, so I get it. But in that situation, that's better than what you had last year. So I'm not worried if they end up giving up a first-round pick. Because ask the Bills if they regret giving up a first-round pick for Stephon Diggs. Ask the Eagles if they regret giving up a first-round pick for A.J. Brown. Ask the Dolphins if they regret giving up a first-round pick for Tyreek Hill. All of them will tell you no. And look, this is a team that is going into the year. They're going to be playing a third-place schedule again, just like they did last year. They are better defensively today than they were in Week 18 in the playoffs. They are better quarterback-wise than they were this past season. So common knowledge, I mean, if things work out and everything lives up to its potential, that tells you, oh, okay, they can win 10 games again, maybe 11, and hell, maybe even a playoff game, depending on who they face and where they are in the seeding and whatnot. But they have the talent on both sides of the ball, and they're obviously not done. This is basically what the stream is about. They got to get another receiver, and they got to get, at minimum, a center. I don't think they're going to roll in with Nate Herbig as their starting center. I just really don't think they're going to do that. They're going to draft a center, whether it be in the first or second round. And look, if that means that they got to start Dan Moore at left tackle and Broderick Jones at right again, okay. It's not exactly ideal, but every team is going to have holes. And if you can upgrade at center, which, I mean, anything is better than Mason Cole was last year. So every team's going to have holes. And I think the Steelers' biggest hole right now is obviously not having a center, but it could just be like, hey, Dan Moore's going to be the left tackle. They can still draft a guy to bring in. But if they do it in, the 6th round, people are going to be a little bit annoyed. Or if they do it in the 4th round or the 3rd round, again, it all just depends on, if they do trade for Aiyuk, what they give up, what picks they have left, and how they go about handling it. But if they do give up a 1 and a 3, well, that's fine. They still have a 2 and a 3, and you can address center and left tackle and be chilling. And then your biggest worry would be cornerback depth. But even then, you got Joey Porter Jr. and Dante Jackson starting. Darius Rush is probably your best bet at nickel. And you got Corey Trice who was injured last year and Campa missed the entire year. So they would certainly have to make a depth signing at corner, which, okay, that's fine. Even then, the cornerback room's still probably better than what it was last year. And guess what? If they do want to make a depth signing at corner, Patrick Peterson, that door's still open. You can bring him back on a very cheap 1-year deal, put him in the nickel, and then you got Darius Rush, Corey Trice, and maybe one more younger signing or a draft pick behind him. But if they give up a 1 and a 3 for Aiyuk and then go center, tackle, whatever order you want them to go in, probably tackle then center, and then take a corner. Okay, those are 3 things that are addressed. There's always going to be holes with every team. But if you can get a Brandon Aiyuk, you get a Brandon Aiyuk. And people are putting way too much value on a first-round pick for a team that hasn't been good at utilizing first-round picks for a long time. That's the moral of today. But if you're watching this on YouTube and you're not subscribed, it would be lovely if you did. And I know that it's very annoying watching YouTube videos and hearing the person say that, so I apologize in advance. But it does help, and we're very close to 500, which is also very nice. So if you can subscribe, like, comment if you'd like, that would make me happy. New episode of the Pump Fake will be Thursday. I know I said it was going to be today, and then all this stuff happened, so we're just going to do a stream on here. So we'll do Pump Fake later this week, which will be on here as well as wherever you get your podcasts. Just talking about NFL free agency and whatnot, all the moves that have been made. But yes, please subscribe and like and all that fun YouTube stuff. And there'll be more like this. A couple videos a week, podcast a week. Trivia Bowl's coming back. If you've followed me for a little bit, you know how fun Trivia Bowl is. So we'll start doing those throughout the off season. Follow me on Twitter at JBaileyNFL. You'll get all my other opinions like this, as well as, the league-wide stuff too. So appreciate y'all for tuning in. Just wanted to, address the rumors and give my thoughts on it. And like I said, please subscribe and do all that YouTube stuff. We'll be back later on in the week at the Pump Fake. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, and I will see you later.